In this video, I'll be showing you how to do a provisional cast on using a crochet chain. Start with a slip knot. Now before any of the stitches go onto the needle, you want to chain a few stitches with your crochet hook just to give you a little bit of room on both sides. So you'll be beginning and ending with a chain. So simply go behind the yarn with the crochet hook, pull through, just like that. 4 or 5 stitches is plenty. Now this particular type of cast on is designed to be able to rip off of the bottom of your knitting without having to unpick all of the yarn. And sometimes it's a little difficult to do that if you make a chain and pick up from it. So here's a way to do it so that it makes it a lot easier to take the chain off. So in the same way that you use the crochet hook to pull the stitch through to make a new chain, starting with the yarn underneath and behind your working needle, pull the yarn over the needle and through the stitch. And you'll have to pull the yarn back behind your needle again and repeat the process. Use the hook to pull the yarn through the last stitch and put your working yarn behind the needle. While it looks like a bit of an awkward motion, it does get a lot easier as you go on. And because this is such a simple way to get the stitches onto the needle, you can use any size crochet hook that fits the yarn that you're using to cast on. And you actually can cast on stitches that are not terribly tight. They're pretty much just right. They feel just like any other knitted stitch. So it's a lot easier to knit into the stitches when you cast them on this way. Now another thing to note is I'm using a cotton yarn, a very slick cotton yarn. I'm using Shine to do the provisional cast on, even though I'm going to knit with Wool of the Andes. And this is because you want the yarn that you're using for the cast on to be as slippery as possible so you don't have to worry about it getting caught up. A soft cotton yarn like Shine is really perfect because it won't pill and it won't want to felt to the rest of your knitting or get stuck to the rest of your knitting, even if that piece of knitting is going to be in progress for a very long time. So as you can see, there's several stitches on the needle. I've got a short tail coming off the back, and now I'm going to make a tail at the other side. So instead of going above the needle and pulling another stitch through, I go back under the needle and chain stitches just like I did to start. And just a few is all you need. And then you break your yarn, pull that through. Your stitches are cast on. They look perfect just like any other knit stitches. Underneath you'll have sort of an interesting, almost looks like a row of stockinette hanging out underneath your needle. You have short crochet chains on either side, and then all you want to do is attach your working yarn by knitting into the first stitch and simply keep knitting. So here's a piece of knitting with the provisional cast on at the bottom. So the next thing you're going to want to do is pick up the stitches of the row above the cast on, place them on the needle to begin knitting in the other direction. And then obviously that's what a provisional cast on is for, so that you're left with these live stitches to then work as needed later. So you just turn the work upside down and then begin picking up the stitches even though they've still got the cast on through them. It's easier to do this ahead of time than rip out the cast on and then have to chase down all the stitches. Now usually when you pick up from the bottom of a provisional cast on, you're going to be left with this funny half stitch. And the reason for that is because technically you're half a stitch off when you're working from the other direction. So if you're doing things like vertical stripes, they won't line up. And that's just sort of the nature of the beast. When you get to that weird funny half stitch, essentially what you want to do is just wrap the yarn over the needle, and then when you go to knit into that, just hold it firm underneath the knitting and knit into that as a stitch. So to unravel the provisional cast on, you want to start at the bind off end, and you pull the cast on the little knot out, and then you simply unzip, and that's all there is to it. And then you're ready to attach yarn and knit in either direction, it doesn't matter. In this case, I'll just slide the yarn back down this way and begin knitting on this side. And as you see, it's all the stitches are perfectly to gauge with the rest of the knitting, so you don't have to worry about having loose stitches or anything like that. And it's just like any other knitting. You just keep going. So that is a provisional cast on using the crochet chain method.